So this time I'm going to go over another type of surface treatment. This time we're going to talk about Sgraffito. Sgraffito is an Italian word which means to scratch. And what we are doing with Sgraffito is we are adding a layer of color to the top of our leather hard pot, and then we are scratching away some of that color so that the clay, the color of the clay comes through so to show your design. So the first thing we need to do is I have my cylinder that I threw, and I'm going to brush underglaze on this. So for mine, I'm just going to use for this demonstration, I'm just going to use straight black underglaze. This is found in the classroom on the shelf. Again, making sure the top is on securely before I start shaking it to stir it up. Once it's stirred up pretty well, then I need to start applying it to my leather hard cylinder, so or whatever pot you may be sgraffitoing on. So when we apply underglaze, underglaze is pretty versatile. It can go on pots at really any stage from freshly thrown to bisqueware. So putting it on at leather hard, it's not going to dry super quickly like it would if you were put to brush it onto bisqueware, but it is going to dry relatively quickly. So I want to brush it on nice even strokes so that I have a nice coating of black over my entire surface. When I do this, I may need to put 2 coats on. Like I said, because the pot has some moisture to it, it doesn't soak in and absorb the color of the underglaze quite as well as a fired pot would, or one that is even dry and greenware ready to be fired for the first time. So bisqueware is really going to cover pretty well, just brushing it on the first time. Greenware will be, should be pretty similar, but leather hard or wet is going to be really kind of tough because the clay isn't going to absorb the moisture and let the underglaze stick. So again, my underglaze is still wet. I can tell because it's shiny. It's not until it's this kind of dull, chalky color that it is dry and really ready to start carving or scratching away. So I'm going to set this one to the side, and we're going to use this one that I've already done. You can kind of see some dust fingerprints on it from my hands. That's not a big deal. Once it's fired, that'll kind of go away. If I were to try to wipe that off right now, I might actually end up wiping off my underglaze. So we just want to leave that on there for now. I have a couple options for tools that I can use to start scratching into my surface. Set this off to the side. So the first is my needle tool, which comes in our toolboxes. Another is our serrated rib, which also comes in our toolboxes. And then I've got some other just kind of general tools that we can use to scratch the surface. There's a couple others that are also available, like the mini sculpting tools, the mini metal sculpting tools and things like that. But I have an X-Acto knife, and then I have some mini ribbon tools. And your larger ribbon tools can work if you're clearing off larger areas, but for Sgraffito, we really want to take out small amounts of the underglaze to create our design. So I just have some patterns here that I've sketched up in a little notebook that I have, and I'm going to work with this one right here to start putting that on my pot. So to do that, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create that circle, and this is going to be kind of in reverse. So whatever's black on here will be white on my pot. So to start with that center circle, I'm taking this mini ribbon tool, which is also circular, and I'm just going to put it on the surface, and I'm going to spin it so that I take just a small amount of that underglaze off. Okay. And then I'm going to use my needle tool, and I'm just going to draw that little arrow that's on there. Okay. This is still a little wet. If it was a little bit drier, it would probably carve a little bit cleaner. Some of that is because I put the underglaze on fairly recently. So I make my next triangle, then make my next circle. I could use my X-Acto blade too. This will give me a little bit wider of a line. That might be a little bit better. Or I could cut it with the blade itself, and that'll give me like a really thin line. The hard part about that is it's really hard to see. So I'm just going to use the X-Acto knife to create my arrows. Use this to create my circles. Okay, and then I keep going with my pattern. Other things, you can just you could scratch designs into the surface. So if I wanted to have kind of a striped effect, I could take my serrated rib, and this would not only give me a design for Sgraffito, but it would also give me some texture in my pot. And I could create like little areas where the scratching goes in different directions. Just to add an additional visual element. So when this is fired, this will be like a little off-white clay color coming through, and then the black on the surface. Some people sometimes take out larger sections. So with my mini ribbon tools, I could carve lines and designs that way if I wanted to. If you like drawing and creating images, this would just be another line drawing on the pot, and you can use frequency and stuff of line to create values, light and dark and things like that. So scratching a design into your like basic cylinder sometimes gives it some extra life, so that you can do some different things and really customize it. You could even carve your name into it if you wanted to. But with this, we're not carving deep, just enough to take that layer of underglaze off and make it stand out for that design effect. So these arrows, going back to my little arrows, I'd probably go back and actually scratch out the middle of the arrow itself. So that's not just an outline. I think that looks a little bit better, makes it stand out a little bit more on my cylinder. So that is Sgraffito, just removing that layer of underglaze to create some pattern, maybe some texture, just to make the cylinder a little more interesting, add another layer of design to it so that it stands out and gets noticed a little bit more.